All right, here we go. Real Talks, day maybe five. We'll go with that. So welcome back. As you know or may not know, I am doing Real Talks for the next 30 days at least to challenge myself to be vulnerable, get out of my box of talking about more business and clients and sharing more about myself. So yesterday, actually, someone sent a message and said they wanted me to talk more about relationships. Yesterday, I spoke about love languages and how we need to check in on those, and how we give love is typically in our own language instead of somebody else's. But when they messaged me that today, I thought, okay, well, what else can I talk about in relationships? Ed and I work with a lot of couples. We do a lot of work within relationships. So I thought one of the most important things I could talk about today in just reflecting back to our own journey, and in that reflection, how many ups and downs we've had in our own journey, like so many, right? But Eddie and I, we are a strong couple, and people see us as a strong couple. But strong couple, I don't care who you are, you have ups and downs in your journey. So it started, with the question yesterday, I started to really reflect on where those ups and downs have come from, and how through all of the roller coasters that we've been on, and we've been on just as many as everybody else, how we've always been able to turn that around and become stronger from it, essentially. So a couple of things I was really thinking about on our own journey, and we practice what we preach. And health has been such a huge part of what we do. Obviously, it is our business, but it's a big part of our own life. So when I was thinking about health in our relationship, I was focusing a lot, and again, it's why we do so much work in this space, but for us specifically, and when we don't feel good about our bodies, we actually disconnect a little bit in our relationship. And of course, I can only speak from a woman's side because I'm a woman. But when I don't feel good about my body, I know that I kind of revert a little bit, like I step back, and it has nothing to do with him, right? It has everything to do with me. And if we're just even thinking of intimacy, if a woman doesn't feel good about her body, she's not really that game for much. So, health is so important. You've got to be paying attention to that. And the problem is when you aren't feeling good about yourself, and again, I cannot speak for men, but I can speak for clients that I've worked with. And when we don't feel good about ourselves, there creates a disconnect. We don't want to be with that other person. Problem is the other person receives that as they're not good enough. The other person receives it as you are not attracted to them. So the number one thing in the work that we do with clients, but the number one thing that has strengthened Eddie's and my relationship is health. And health doesn't mean you need to be the biggest, the strongest, the most muscles. Absolutely not. Health means you need to feel good about yourself. Health means you need to take time to exercise. Health means you need to be eating nutrient dense food. It means you need to be going for walks and taking time out from kids and work and everything that feels heavy, because when you don't feel good about your body, you are going to start stepping out of your relationship instead of into your relationship. And your spouse then unfortunately is going to read that as if they have done something wrong, or that you are not attracted to them, or are your eyes wandering somewhere else, when it all comes back to an insecurity when we're not taking care of ourselves properly. So again, in reflecting in our journey and where I've seen the different bumps in the road, a lot of those bumps have come from when we are not focusing on our health, when we're allowing everything else to take priority, when in reality, if we are not priority solo, then nothing else is in place or running smoothly or running properly. And so often we think that we need to be giving always to others, and again, I can only speak as a mom and as a wife, but I have to put my kids first and my husband first and my business first. But I know my relationship is not doing well, my business is not doing well, and my kids are not doing well when I'm not putting myself first. So first means taking time for my health. It means knowing the importance of my exercise and making sure I've got food in the fridge that's stuff that it's nutrients for me. It's what I enjoy. It's what fuels me, because then I'm better for everybody in my home and in my family. So just really recognizing that when we aren't taking care of ourselves, that's one of the biggest things negative influences in a relationship. When we don't feel good, our energy's off. And unfortunately, like I said, our partner receives that as if they've done something wrong, they're not good enough, or you're not attracted to them anymore. The second thing that I really started to think about in that question about relationships and our relationship is where else maybe we have seen disconnect. And the second, but just as important thing, is in communication. And we hear communication so often, it's how are you communicating? But what does that actually mean? And I can get really granular with that in how Eddie and I work. And when we've had bumps in the road, it's because we haven't communicated our goals properly. So I have very unique, very individual goals. He has very unique, very individual goals. And then we have our goals that are in our relationship, or for our family, or for like our together goals. We have those as well. And we sometimes get so caught up in the process of our goals that a certain period of time passes that we've forgotten to check in on where we're at and how we can support one another rather than police one another, or someone else might refer parent one another. And we only police or parent our spouse when we don't understand what they're doing or what their actual goal is. And that's because we haven't communicated it properly. I was working actually with someone not too long ago, and I sat down with the husband and wife, and I remember he said to me, he goes, I'm confused most of the time. These random boxes come to the door of these products she's going to start to take for this diet. And it's not like she thinks she needs to communicate or ask permission to buy the things. It was that he had no idea what she was doing. It's like, okay, you're just on like another plan, but he doesn't understand what her goal is. So if you don't understand what your spouse's goal is, how are you supposed to know how to support them in that? And sometimes when we're on a journey, because we're not clear in our messaging, we also feel like we need to be on defense, like our goal's not good enough, or he thinks I can't do it, or she thinks I'm not capable of it. When that's not it at all. It's your spouse is confused. Your spouse is confused what you're doing. And that confusion then is received by you as if they think you can't do it, right? So communication about what today looks like, what tomorrow looks like, what are those big goals? Spend time on the couch tonight talking with one another. Like, what does the next 3 months look like for you? What does the next 6 months, 1 year, what does the next 10 years look like? But having the conversations, you don't have to set the roadmap tonight for 10 years, but unless you're doing something today that's in line with that, you're never going to achieve it because it's still a dream. So we need to get really clear. We need to communicate. We need to be vulnerable. We need to let our spouse in onto what we want, what that big vision looks like. Because by identifying what you want as individuals, that's where you're able to find that mutual ground on how to grow together. And, looking again back at our relationship, where we have had our bumps in the road is where we forget to take time, or we take for granted that the other person should just know or understands what journey or what we're working on or what we're doing. But in fact, we haven't communicated it. So I want to challenge you to take time, and don't just take time once in a while. Don't just take time today because I've suggested or remind you. Every Sunday night, maybe make that like a 10-minute check-in with your spouse every Sunday night. Hey, what are your goals this week? How can I help you with that? How can I support you with that? And then ask the same thing and check in. Then check in. What kind of goals do we have together? Like, you may have had these great goals when you got married 1 year ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, and you assume you're all still on the same page. But what are you actually doing to work on those? Check in with one another. Because when we feel excited, when we have something excited or exciting in the future to look forward to, it's going to stimulate, it's going to excite, it's going to create deeper connection in your relationship. So again, those are the two things that they're personally very important to me, and they're things that Eddie and I, whenever there's a bump in our road, it always comes back to those two things. It comes back to we have gone off track in our health goals and we're feeling insecure about self, which again translates negatively in the relationship, or when we've stopped communicating regularly with our goals. Again, individual goals. You have to have individual goals. You're an individual person, but you also have to have together goals. You have to have goals in your relationship that get you both excited, and then learn how to support rather than police one another. So that is what we do. And it's a lot about our program as well. But it's so important, and your person's your person, so let them in, because they are actually supposed to be the people to encourage you, and they want to be the ones to encourage you. So let them in. Hopefully this was helpful. I would love if you would share me comments, questions, something else you want me to talk about, and I would be happy, because I've got like 25 more days of my life. So see you tomorrow.